Hello and welcome to the very 15th episode of the second newest show on the Stat Check Network. It is episode 15 of Take All Comers. Long live the Short Kings. And by the Short Kings, of course, today we're talking about the Leagues of Votann. I'm Tyler Bortel, one of your hosts, joined by
Nicholas Olson Johnson
and the illustrious
Lucas Troller.
And today we are very honored to have a special guest by the name of
Chuck Arnett.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today, Chuck. Chuck put up an absolutely stellar performance at the Tacoma Open, the GW Open in Tacoma this past weekend with the Leagues of Votann, and we are super excited to have him here to talk all about it. We've also seen Leagues of Votann, if you've been following us the last couple of weeks, showing up in WTC lists, up and down on some rosters. So very excited to break down what's going on with this faction that has not been seeing a whole lot of press recently. We're going to get into the Tacoma, we're going to get into some of the WTC nonsense, and we're going to get into some hot and spicy tech that you're only getting here. So welcome to your first look at the Leagues of Votann. But before we jump into any of the good stuff, I got to check in with the boys. How are we doing today, Lucas?
Doing great, man. It was a busy week, but we got through it. I'm very glad it's Friday. And gearing up for our final practice weekend before WTC, which is this coming weekend, which will be really fun. And yeah, I'm excited. It's just like, 8 or 9 days until we fly to Belgium now. So that's pretty crazy. Yeah, doing well overall, just kind of mentally preparing for the trip. How about you, Nick?
I'm doing well. It's only been a few days since we checked in, but I am excited to have Chuck here on the show. I'm a big fan of Leagues of Votann. I'm excited that they are peeking their heads back out of the mines again, and also just want to extend a huge congratulations to Chuck because you killed it, dude. So I'm really excited to just hear about your games today and ask you some questions. Couldn't be happier.
Yeah, it's exciting.
How about you, Tyler?
I am doing fantastic. We've got 2 episodes of TAC in a singular work week, so you know it's got to be a great time. Like Lucas said, the hone in to WTC here, the last couple steps along the road have been intense. It's been a whole lot of practice games, trying to get people ready for Necrons and Tyranids and all the other nonsense, and also trying to make sure I'm vaguely ready for War Masters. We'll see about that. But I am super excited that we have a stat rep that went up today. That was Assimilation Swarm Nids into Mont Tau. Super cool game. You got to check it out. It is live as we speak. If you're checking in live, that'll be your first thing to watch right after this. So excited to have y'all see some of that kind of nonsense. And yeah, very excited for Belgium, though also just a whole lot of chaos coming into the home stretch here. How are you doing today, Chuck?
Pretty good. I've almost fully recovered from the shadow round, so I'm on the right mend.
Glad to hear, man. And the shadow round is a lot on anyone's body. I think Lucas is actually the only one of the 3 of us who's had to hit them in the past.
Let's not talk about that fabled tale, brother. It's a dark timeline for Mr. Troller.
Oh man, eat your Wheaties or at least eat something, kids. It turns out that's some of the keys there. Chuck, for those who are longtime listeners of Take All Comers and of our spiritual predecessor, Best Infection Next Generation, are going to be certainly familiar with you and some of your accolades. But could you break down a little bit what your history is, how you came to the spot in 40K? You're not necessarily the new kid on the block, shall we say?
Let's just harken all the way back to last century in 1994 on Christmas morning when a young Chuck Arnett opened his first box of 2nd edition 40K.
We're going to fast forward 5 years to the birth of the members of this podcast, and then go from there.
I worked at a game store, so I played a ton. And then after that, working at a game company and just being encouraged to participate in games and be a part of the world. I went to a bunker store back when GW had those, played in a tournament. And I was like, oh, this is what I would like to do with the rest of my life. And just sort of launched directly into getting as much tournament play as I possibly could. It's been up and down since then. Game's not always in the great place, but sometimes it's in a wonderful place. And I kind of I'm happy to be 3-2 most of the time. And every once in a while, I click well with an army like this, or long ago when orcs had 25 ludas or whatever, and I tend to go a little higher for a little while and then back to normal. So
Fantastic. Well, I'm real excited to get into your list and your run here. But before we jump into that, I know there was a big plug that you want to throw out for one of our big partners coming up.
Yeah, let's talk Charity Hammer.
Hell yeah,
coming up the
man.
weekend of what? Well, not the weekend. It starts on Thursday now. Thursday, the 5th of September, we're going to start streaming, and we're not going to stop. We're going to stream all the way through. And throughout that period of time, we'll be doing a raffle. So if you donate in increments of $30 to the Charity Hammer group, which will go to Child's Play, you'll get a ticket for each of those, and there'll be drawings all the time. And I don't know what's in the pile of treasure yet. But like in the past, we've done armies, giant store gift certificates, that kind of stuff. Like, it's not little things, although there are plenty of little things. Lots of people donate from their pile of shame to fill it in. So it's a good time. It'll be a lot of streaming. So if you're looking for some games to watch, there's everything from pretty serious games of high level players trying to win the tournament that we run throughout to crazy games like Danny and I, Danny McDevitt we're going to do a mirror match where we will try to be as similar to each other as possible for the entirety of the entire game. Do some antics. It should be a good time.
Fantastic. And where can people, I mean, we'll put links in the description, obviously, but if people are listening on the pod feed and whatnot, where should they be looking to get a hold of a piece of all the action?
That's a great question. If I had a link here, that would be professional, but I'm not. Look in the links below, which I will definitely get later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Charity Hammer is streamed as a partnership between it'll be on the Best in Tabletop YouTube, and it'll be on War Games Live.
War Games, there we go.
So those are the places you're going to want to check out for that. And once again, the dates on that, it's coming up. It'll be here before you know it. It's the first full weekend of September, right after Labor Day weekend, September 5th through 8th. You'll be hearing plenty more about that from us, and I'm looking forward to it a whole lot. It's going to be a ton of fun, and we're going to raise a whole bunch of money to help some kids in hospital. So, with that out of the way, let's jump right on in to the Tacoma Open, featuring the Leagues of Votann. What is in this army, Chuck?
Let's see. Let's start at the top. It's got a Grimnir. He's 65 points. I don't own a third Einherjar champ, so he was the best, cheapest thing to throw on my back objective
so ready to
the
hear
entire
the story on this great tech piece that no one else is taking. Fair enough.
Characters are the cheapest thing we can buy in individuals. Also, I wanted to try out the appraising glare. I keep getting told this is the best thing ever. I actually kind of hate it, and we'll remove it immediately. But I wanted to try it out. Also, I made a little token for it, so got to give it a go. I came to this event, by the way, expecting to not even come on Sunday. So like GW and I did sort of casualness. I was walking into this situation. From there, we got 2 Einherjar champs. And we've got one Brokier mechanic, blanking on the actual name, but the mech guy and his little drone friends. The 2 champs go in 5-man squads of Terminators. Those guys get hammers and clubs and Vulcanite, and they go inside land forts. So I have 2 land forts that are fully stocked full of guys who want to fight and punch and shoot a little. And then I grab a couple of Sagittars and a couple of squads of Berserks, and I load those up as well. And then I go for 6 squads of bikes, or a 6-man of bikes and 2 3-mans. And then finally, 6 Thunderkin to add the mech to, so that I have a big old brick of relatively difficult to shift, really good Overwatch. And that's kind of it. It's pretty straightforward. It's a lot of really, what I think are very efficient units who are also all very tough. So it takes people real commitment, which I can then.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll definitely hand over to Nick in a sec as kind of the Votann expert here. The unit that jumps out at me as being really out of left field is the Thunderkin. I have not seen those get a lot of representation out in the field, and they're not really coming to Belgium. I assume these are with the Grav?
Yeah. I
Sweet.
think that's the only way you can build them. It's the only...
What was the thought process on including these guys, and what were they able to do for you over the course of the weekend?
So they kind of get used in one of 2 ways, depending on my opponent's army. If I don't think I'm going to be able to move them up the center, for instance, like real MSU Chaos Space Marines, you don't want to move. They don't want to walk through the middle of the table because some random Chaos Lord's going to catch up with them. So then you outflank them. Similar with Tau or Knights, where you want to make sure you get the first chance to vaporize a target before they go. Otherwise, they're going to wander up through the middle. They're going to probably end up taking some charges. They probably won't die from it. They'll be a fallback shoot target, but they'll also get a really good overwatch in there while that's happening. In the stream games that I played, in several games throughout the tournament, also I would move them to positions where they're standing in cover and staring at an objective, and then I would take the other two objectives. And I look at my opponent and be like, "There's a free objective. If you'd like to go over there at the cost of 1 CP, I will kill the first unit that tries." Right? I think the reason you don't see him in other people's lists is I'm very aggressive. I push almost this entire army to the center. And if they're standing just behind a couple of land forts or Terminator or something like that, they're not going to get charged into. So their guns are just going to keep shooting. That said, they are one of the pieces that when I'm writing lists often get removed. An equivalent point spent into bikes certainly gives you something that is going to get angles easier, going to move around easier, and be less of a problem if you make a mistake about where you put them.
The other thing I think is, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I might have missed this, but you don't have any Jaegers in your list. Is that correct?
I don't have any. I'm in the middle of redoing the army with a different theme, and those Jaegers are inside a $140 box set, and I wasn't about to bring some Jaegers.
I think that's where a lot of Votann folks are right now, with just like
Yep.
they're in
trapped.
the waiting for model stage.
I checked with all the Genestealer Cult players I could find, and none of them wanted to get more Genestealer Cult.
That's crazy, dude. I wonder why that
I know.
Yeah, it turns out no one needs their 34th Brood Coven and 10 Guardsmen.
Yeah.
Oh, I was thinking for another reason, but fair enough.
No, they're both problems.
Can you
Yeah.
tell us how many GSC are coming to Belgium, dude?
Yeah.
Oh man, I can tell you exactly how many. I've surveyed all of the lists, and there's a shocking consistency. Every single GSC list is exactly the same. They're all in the trash can. There are none of them present at the WTC team event. Someone asked in the comments on our episode on Monday if we would review some of the GSC lists. There are none. I was given firm instructions. We'll peek behind the curtain in the WTC world. I was given firm instructions to, quote unquote, not fucking bother investigating if there was anything that we might want to take in there. Just don't. I hope to find out that we're wrong someday and for that faction to be playable, but until that day comes around, we will just continue to exist in the hopes that we might supply some Votann players with a couple of scouts. Our buddy Skylar got himself a box on eBay or whatnot, and they immediately got scooped up so that Tanner could take them with him to Tacoma because someone needed to be the one fielding them. So sorry that you don't have a Skylar in your life. Do you think that they make the list in a world where those models suddenly appear?
Absolutely. So I can actually give sort of talking about lists. I'm going to go play a couple games tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to be playing the two Sagittars are going to be flipped for a land fort. And the Grimnir will be, and his enhancement will be flipped for the Jaegers.
Wait, you're going triple fort?
Yeah.
Okay. I think we got to talk about this a little bit then.
You sound like you're going to try to talk me down off a ledge.
No, I'm intrigued. So I was actually going to do like a follow-up question here. That the forts seem to be something that every Votann player is really like honing in on, right? Like all of the WTC lists we talked about on Monday, all of them have double fort. You're playing double fort. Now you want to play triple fort, but let's talk about double fort real quick here. Why the forts? Why are they suddenly back? Right? Because for a while it was like 6 Sagittars and like Hearthguard, right?
Yeah. Well, first up, every time I do anything with a Sagittar, it just causes me to be disappointed. I never have had any success. And when they're really successful against something I didn't care about. And that inconsistency isn't what I'm looking for out of this army. I need to be taking my 5 steps forward and being like, you can't go any further, right? So I think 2 forts are really important because most missions have 3 objectives down the center. And I want to put a fort on each of those objectives. And I will look at my opponent and say, I currently have the tempo in this game. You need to do something. Because I think Votann are the most strong when your opponent is trying to do something. Because then they can respond and then like literally everything you see dies, right? So I need to give you reasons to act, and I think 2 forts does that. I think a 3rd fort is because, again, the Sagittar have made me sad too many times. So
Yeah. And how do you feel about them? Because like when I've played Double Fort, there's always a point in the game where they both end up in combat, right? Because yes,
oh yeah,
you do want them on objectives.
that's turn
pros and
2
cons.
for me. Like I'm jamming them at
Yeah.
people. They spend the whole game in combat.
Yeah. So like, do you feel that like messes with their effectiveness too much if they're constantly at -1 to hit?
No, because they're in combat with the things I don't want to be with the rest of my army. One of them is going to get to fall back and shoot probably,
Yeah.
right? So that's not going to help do terrible awful. And weirdly, after something's been judged a couple of times, they're not bad at combat.
Yeah.
I
They're
feel
also
that.
really good at tank shocking now.
Oh yeah, that's been delightful. A little upgrade I'll appreciate for a while.
So,
Yeah. The last time I lost to Votann, I was confident that my gargoyles were safe in combat with a land fort, and they got punched to crap. Very 6 attacks is a good number.
I punched out Gaz with a land fort at the tournament.
pretty good. I think of one person who's not happy about that.
No, everyone was happy about it.
Just looking at Lucas shaking his head in disbelief. Over that.
Incredible. All right,
Yeah.
sweet. Any other questions you have, Nick, about the list that you want to break into?
Yeah, I'm curious about this triple fort list. Like, so you're cutting the Sagittars for the third fort. What else are you planning on changing?
The Grimnir and his enhancement will become Jaegers. In a game where I need the Jaegers into to block high pressure, to stop world leaders or whatnot from getting into me, they'll go up front, they'll sacrifice for the job, and 3 bikes will hang back and do the objective if I need it. And then they can also bounce out really easy late game. Once some random dude can go stand on the objective. The rest of the time they'll just be the ones that stand on my home field objective instead of the Grimnir, and they just give me far more utility than the Appraising Glare does, and also some durability. He gets picked up by Storm Boys, another trash that sneaks around back far too easy. 10 guys with plasma knives are gonna at least make you pay.
Yeah. What are you planning on putting in the third fort? Are you just running it empty?
I have 2 squads of Berserkers in the list right now. I'm just going to jam them directly in there.
Gotcha.
I really value the damage 3. There's a lot of half damage or -1 damage, and being able to go up to damage 3, even if it's just like I'm picking the one target that needs to be delivered to, it's still very important for the list. So they got to stick around.
Yeah.
Makes
What do
sense
you
to me.
feel about
What do you-
these? What do you feel about these 10-man Zerker units that we're seeing in some of the WTC lists, riding in the forts?
I have 2 5s. If I want to put a 10 into you, I'm going to put 5 into you, touching your whole unit. Then I'm going to put 5 on the end. And then you get to swing with one of your guys. Maybe you kill him. 50% of the time I get to fight on death. It's the same as a 10-man, but I can also send a 5-man if that's what the job requires.
You do get better strat usage though, right? Because like the 110-man at AP4.
I guess. What am I swinging at? The 5-man with AP4 is not doing the job. And then
I'm thinking of just stuff with like more bodies, more wounds, right? Like if you really need to kill like the 10-man brick with Lamarties or something.
Okay, maybe. It's not really something that I deal with, at least in the Pacific Northwest meta, that doesn't really show up much. I guess I would end up probably shooting first and then doing that. But I prefer not having to put all my stuff on the table at once, right? Like I want to coax the other army into me slowly and grind it out. I dump that on the table, kill one thing, and then they are just obviously all their guns are going to go in there until they're gone, right? There's no
it also seems like once you've gotten the third fort, the list is even more going toward lean over fat, and it can be useful to just increase the unit count by 1, even if it means in some situations you might hit one specific target a little bit less hard.
A really good point. Like we should talk about CPU usage in general, but that comes up right here, right now. My favorite strats are Overwatch and throw an objective back. Pria is full of actions, and my list is lean. It doesn't want to do them. So there's lots of times where I'm like, if it takes 2 units to do the action, or the action might fail, and whatever, those are out you go. Next mission, and you have to stay pretty diligent on that. I want to do that 2 or 3 times a game in order to get my points up high enough to beat people. Like you can't just sort of my bonus CP are for that. So unless I can, do a helm, like I can haymaker them and knock them out of the building with the strat turn, then great. But
Yeah, that's a really good call. I think that's an adjustment in Pariah that a lot of players are really slow to make, realizing just how big of a deal it is to be able to be cycling all the time, especially with all the points coming down so much. So really glad to see that you're taking such good advantage of that already. When it comes to these forts, I assume you're running them all with the beams?
Beams and bolt cannons.
Beams and bolt cannons for sure. I'm curious if there isn't if the anti-synergy of the way you want to play the forts and the way that beam gun operates becomes an issue, where it wants to shoot things far away and you want the forts to be inside your opponent. Would you consider any other gun options, or is the beams just that much more efficient?
I ran I forgot what the name of it is, the blast one, for a while. It's a bunch of damage too. In the end, there are particularly I forgot the name of it, the dreadnoughts and the storm ravens army, where everything was -1 damage.
Iron Storm, yeah.
Yeah. I needed to have something that wasn't damaged too, or I was going to lose that battle. They came in at that point, and even when they're in combat, there tends to be a target. Like I'm never just looking at how do I survive the wave that's interacting with me. I'm also looking at how do I cripple the wave that's coming after that. So there's always a target, it feels like. Also, if you're going to swing for Overwatch, it might as well be sustained D3. Like sometimes you just pick up a predator, like get out of here. Sorry.
Oh man, that is terrifying. Excellent. Oh, we got a super chat in here from definitely not Team Poland, who offered us $5 asking what is Team USA's pairings matrix. I'll happily show you for 3 orders of magnitude more than that. I'll show you our matrix into Slovakia. My Venmo's in the description. But I appreciate the effort. I assume that's Typhus. Love you, Typhus.
Totally not Team Poland, dude.
Absolutely not.
What would you think it was?
Sweet. Are we ready to break into a couple of games here?
Yeah.
Awesome. Let's do it. What do you got for us, Chuck?
Well, let's start with the first one. I think the 2 games I want to really talk about were on stream as well. So if people want to check them out on War Games Live, that's great. I wanted to see
not on War Games Live.
Not on War. Oh, it's on the GW Twitch, right?
Yeah, twitch.tv/Warhammer, I think.
Warhammer, yeah. But yeah, they're available out there. The first one is into a CSM list. It was all MSU CSM, 5-man chosens, legionnaires, chaos lords, and then he also had 2 scouting accursed cultist rhinos, which was interesting, but not. Maybe not
you
as
can
bad.
Put accursed cultists and rhinos.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And then it's a dedicated transport, so then they get a little 6-inch little scout.
Sure. Neat.
This was on the map that I'm not going to remember the name of, but it's got basically the wall down the center with the one little opening of 6 inches in the middle. Basically, it's a trench warfare map.
Are you talking about a terrain layout or a deployment?
It's a terrain layout. The deployment zone is a tipping point, but it's the terrain layout is the 2 walls that come down, and there's only one little gap you can get through. That's pretty rough from a shooting perspective. So I definitely took a stance where I was going to wait. I threw the Thunderkin into reserve to walk on later, knowing that maybe I would make a hole somewhere, and being able to shoot from his backfield was going to be huge. He had just enough Chaos Space Marines that he could end up trapping me, and then I would never get to that center objective. But my army does a lot of damage too, and a lot of AP1 ignore cover damage too. So every time he throws something at me, I'm just going to pick it up. So I came from I'm going to deploy hard onto each of my flanks and then wait until he comes in and then kill that and then move forward as I go. He did a lot better than I thought. Particularly the cultists were enough to hold me back on turn 1. So he could hold me back turn 1, hold me back turn 2, hold me back turn 3. And I started to get a little bit like, this is getting rough. But we got down to the point where he's like, okay, he's got 5 legionnaires and some tanks now. Let's everybody go forward. And then he brings a rhino in that I had forgotten about with more legionnaires in it because they're basically infinite. But where it comes down to is we fought over the center and he held it for longer. But because I was able to wipe him out and get that turn 4 and then bottom of 5 scoring and bring those Thunderkin in and clean up, like his cultists and a rhino, but basically just clean up things that were going to let him exist on objectives as well. I got him down to basically no material. And the material that came in was in a rhino with 2 legionnaires. So he existed to get 3 units, but they all existed in the same space. so they could only really fight over the same objective. And that was just, I think, too much. This is similar to a lot of my games. I annihilate my opponent's armies. It's an extermination force. No, like, people don't walk away, but they might get me on points, is what it comes down to. That's why I'm always trying to cycle, make sure I'm getting my points moving, because the way I get beat is points. In general, I think that game is very interesting because it is classic to what this army does. I'm going to take up a space. I'm going to try to take a bit of momentum, and then I'm going to say, I'm staying here, and I won't back down. This is mine. I've claimed this, and then I will take another step forward, and this is mine now. And I did that all the way to his deployment zone, basically. And I think that's when Votann are the strongest, when you're just like taking the board 5 inches at a time. This is mine, this is mine, this is mine.
Very thematically appropriate for an army of dwarves.
Yeah, I was actually earlier listening to an AI David Attenborough reading off the dwarf, the Votann stuff, and they talked about like how they do that. They're like, we're going to take the galaxy through like one step at a time. It's like, that's, yes, it's spot on. So yeah, I think that's, to me, that's sets a baseline. There's a lot of other armies that fit into this category for me. Space Wolf, the whatever, Wolf Jail, right? Where they're going to send a bunch of that stuff into you. It's all much faster when it's Wolf Jail. Like, they're going to dump a lot on you all of a sudden. But they are all going to bring it into view. And so I get to shoot with everything. That's where the 6-man bikes is really important. That is their 4 strat. Like, I want to Ancestors sentence on them and dump firepower into it. I did that in the final round of the tournament. First turn, they come running at me. They killed the land fort, and then I shot back at that unit, and he was great. He goes, I don't want to be a gotcha. I don't want you to forget. I can move d6 inches after you shoot your unit, so your guys are right here. You should be careful. And I was like, oh, I think it'll be okay. I killed the unit and one of the characters. And he goes, oh, okay.
He didn't armor contempt him or anything?
I got him to armor and contempt in order to save Bjorn previously.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Dang.
So it was a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is really important to that is I do have 2 Berserker units, and they're great in close combat, but they're also great in shooting if your opponent is relying on long distance charges, because giving you -2 movement, -2 assault, and -2 charge really slows down a unit.
Yeah, that mole is terrifying.
Yeah, I play into orcs mostly, and it's just like, well, just hope I don't 4 up yet. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, I think that's a game I wanted to ask you about, the Wolf Jail. I know we talked about at the beginning. I know Jaden was playing like a little bit of a different version, right? Yeah. He was playing Champions of Wrath instead of Stormlance. So like big notable differences there is he can hit a bit harder because he gets sustained 1 army wide. He has access to +1 AP as well as Lance, which is pretty good in a Votann, right? Because like one of the biggest weaknesses of Wolf Jail is their lower AP. But in exchange, right, he doesn't quite have the like pressure trap that Stormlance has, which is like the fallback and charge and the reactive move. So when you try to fall back, they reactive move and can blood surge back into you.
Yeah.
So what's like your game plan into some like high pressure matchup like Wolf Jail? Because to me, that feels to be the toughest for Votann.
It really is. Like, when I played him, I put 1 land fort out on the line, and then I set everybody else up around it. I'm going to get a forward position out of this, or you're going to have to interact with this, because it's going to be sitting here center. You can't just ignore it. And now I know where you are, and the rest of my army is ready to react to it. Being able to surge d6 inches isn't a big deal. Like, I just talked about the amount of volume of damage I do. Even if he'd had the armor contempt on there, he ends up with like 2 wolves and a guy and a couple of characters. I just position my unit as far away from the characters that I can, and then they won't make it to me. Right. And then if I do that, plus I think I set up a follow-up Berserker charge to kind of come in and handle the rest of it. That unit is at least going to be destroyed enough that it won't get to me anymore. Like, it's not a problem. It's going to turn into a nuisance. A couple characters maybe get out, and even those characters are going to go pretty quick when I've got +1 to hit and wound them all the time. I think the big key here is with those kinds of armies, they tend to pretty much all fit underneath the double judgment, right? Like I gave his knight double judge, and I gave all 3 units of heavy cav double judge. So some scouts, I don't need help killing scouts, right? So I'm always going to be +1 to hit, +1 to wound, army-wide rule. I think that's huge. It's sort of similar into some World Eaters armies. MSU World Eaters is kind of spooky. But again, MSU, then they don't have great answers to like the 6-man unit of bikes. I can put other people in the way, and I can just keep like you will pay the price every time. But if then they like I kill them on an objective, and then they soak the objective in blood and the chairs, and then like I got to put somebody out there. We start getting to a space where they have more things to trade than I do. And that's where like you want to outflank the Thunderkin and come in from a weird angle, start killing people, and then asking them like, do you want to send some people back here? You send 1 unit back here and I overwatch it, it won't do the job anymore. Now you got to send 2 units back here to stop me. It starts to be, I don't know, it causes them problems. You want to make them thin in all places so you can take advantage as the game develops.
Makes sense. Speaking of the those initial double judgments, I know that's kind of a mini game that that can catch people off guard, and that when I've seen Votann players have things fall apart, it often happens in that step where the wrong things end up getting judged. What's your philosophy on that? Trying to balance, getting efficiency and utility, but also you were saying earlier that CP can be a bit of a crunch. How hard are you trying to go find that using the army rule, trying to go after those units?
I put a lot of effort into educating my opponent so that they know I'm gonna like if you put some trash out, I'm gonna go pick it up and get those CP. And if they do it, I'm gonna do it. Getting paid that CP early and being able to spend it throughout the game to make sure my points stay up is huge. I can't imagine a matchup where I wouldn't like sack 3 bikes to get that. That's for sure. So what normally happens is people don't give me that, and what I look for is, for instance, if orcs are my most experienced things. Like if it's, I will put it on the battle wagon, but not the guys inside it, because I need to make sure to get rid of the battle wagon. So you start with sort of what's going to be something I have to kill that isn't going to be killing me. Battle wagon's a great example. I need to get rid of that ASAP. So I want to put that on there. If some knobs drop out of the battle wagon after that, probably acceptable. I'm going to try to charge them, try to get some work done. And then you start looking at the next level of what's the toughest thing for me to kill that isn't going to kill. I almost never put it on Gaz, because Gaz is going to, if he's in the list, he's going to sneak up, right? He's going to get at least a kill in before he gets started. So I'm not going to try to, he's going to make his own. So great, have at it. Warp Talons is another one where that's a hard question. Like if they have a 10-man Warp Talon, I'm probably putting it on there because I want to get to the +1 to wound, because I'm going to overwatch them every time they come at me. But normally I wouldn't, because I'd expect them to be getting their own kills and it would work out over time. But just their very specific nature makes them spooky for me.
That makes a lot of sense there. Yeah, excellent. Do you have a second game you wanted to break into as well?
Well, I think it's good. Like, let's talk about that semifinals where I lost.
Yeah.
I will put out there to begin with that semifinals that I lost it to the shadow round. Having to stay up till 1 a.m. playing, and then having to get up at 7 in order to be there at 9. I am too old to successfully do that thing they wanted me to do. I was super glad that we had a head judge like 100% on the table the whole time. Like one time I tried to fire my bolt cannons from my land fortress and I grabbed 12 dice. I don't know. It's only 6, but I was just going to do it. Not a cheating, not an intent, just like too tired to properly play. In that game, I had a very good opening move where I moved out, I grabbed the 2 objectives and terraformed them. Get that early terraform lead. Like I was kind of talking about before, anytime you can snatch the momentum right away and force your opponent to respond, I think it's very good for Votann. And then in conjunction with that, I had scouted, moved, and advanced the 6-man unit of bikes, just lock up his whole army in their deployment zone.
This is you going first?
Yeah, definitely going first plan, not a going second plan. And that stuff that all worked out. I positioned models poorly, and some things went a little weird. But then, like, some luck pulled me out, and that all got done. But then we're in this position where, like, the orcs are now they killed the 6-man bikes. Quite shocking, right? I think Gaz did it all on his own.
That's
But
a
I'm looking
judgment.
at that scenario, and it's like, okay, they're standing mid-table. Obviously, they wall on turn 2. So I'm shooting into a wall turn, so about a third of my stuff is gonna. I'm about third efficiency. And this is where I made some mistakes that allowed that game to be lost for me. I had a fort mid-board that had just terraformed. That fort could either step back, right? And I could just do the classic, like, oh, you've wad, we're just going to make enough distance that the wad doesn't matter, and I'll let you have the board for a turn, and I'll kill you. Or that fort could go forward and tag a bunch of stuff and hold it from coming at me. I didn't. It just stayed midfield and shot the best of its ability and whatnot, right? Not great. You look at stuff like that. There's the 2 3-man units of bikes could have also been used as a second round. To like, and now there's more bikes. You're going to want 6 bikes. Good job. And I think that's where that game came apart. But in coming apart there, it shows what's most important is you want to force your opponent into what you want them to be going into. There's enough speed because Votann is a fast army. I don't understand that, but it's true. Everybody moves 12 and 10. I needed to be forcing him into the targets that I wanted while I continued to shoot and make the cost of existing in the game too high for him to sustain. Instead, I didn't, and he got into enough of my material, got like 8 of 9 charges to go off, and just blew up enough of my stuff that I was kind of sunk from that point forward. I was never going to kill enough to get him off of objectives enough to actually get back in the game myself.
So do you think that's because you didn't give enough ground on the wall turn, or?
I didn't. No, yes, there's one. The other one is I could have taken a lot more ground. I did a mid-range, and if you mid-range, that's not going to work. I either needed to just all in him, like, great, you've wad, here we come. We're going to just like countercharge right into you, or back all the way up. I didn't do either of those things, and that's definitely a failing.
Gotcha.
But again, I don't know. It really illuminates how you should respond. If somebody comes in very hard, either back up or go in. Don't hang out and wait for them to do their plan.
Right. Makes sense.
I think like one of them in particular, I could have sent Terminators into a squad of knobs, killed them and the war boss, and then tagged Gaz. Gaz would have wrecked that squad, but it's not likely he would have killed the whole thing. So I get rid of the knobs, and then Gaz is stuck there killing them on my turn with a guy with a hammer. So like maybe I'd do some work into Gaz's squad on his turn, right? Something like that would have helped a ton.
Yeah, the Terminators have a cool ability to like do things like that, and the Berserkers, they're not quite as good at it because they kind of die immediately.
Yeah, they die.
And once they don't get the whole value out of their fight on death if they tag something as well, right? But the Terminators, like, they go in, they do their 1 round of damage, they tag something else, and while they are just 2 wound little dudes, they also have some annoying durability where if you have the wrong attacks into them, like Gaskell's TP2 2 damage sweep, all of a sudden, like, you're taking 3 up armor saves and Gaz is only wounding on 3s or whatever.
Yeah, particularly if you can kill the squad first.
Yeah.
So he's not getting as many buffs, and then it's like now it's getting sketchy, and then there's a couple of 4-up invuln saves in there, and then you like do a couple damage to the champ, but he's not dead. And
yeah, all it takes is one wound guy to keep Gaz in combat.
Those kind of things, I think even just a little bit of that on that turn could have flipped that game into my favor, which would have made a huge difference. Right? Obviously, that put me in the finals into some Sisters of Battle, which I never even played into. So it would have been quite the education. Right.
Yeah, those Bringers of Flame are quite something. I know Lucas has had some interesting experiences practicing that matchup. I don't want to tip our WTC hand too much, but they go fast and they shoot hard.
Sisters.
Stop going 30 inches and shooting me with flamers.
It's like 22. It's fine.
Stop going 22 inches and shooting me with flamers.
And then moving 6 more.
Yeah.
Oh man, isn't that the downside of flamers though? They're only 12-inch range, right? So if they're going to be up close, they're going to. And also, like, you're a T5 army. Flamers are only strength 3. I know Sisters are strength 4, but like they're only strength 4, right? Your T5 is so durable against that, right?
Pistol flamers won't be strength 5.
Surely they wouldn't be strength 5. That'd be absurd.
At this
Um,
point in the weekend, you've played like many games. How are you finding like the fort durability? Because Nick and I were talking about this a little while ago. How people, as soon as the Land Raider, kind of decreased in popularity because of the points hike and things like that. It feels like people have been teching less stuff into their lists to kill like the truly durable big tanks. And the fort is basically just as durable as a Land Raider, but it doesn't have smoke. So like, how were you finding people were able to kill them pretty easily, or did people really not have solutions for them?
There's kind of two modes. One, people are able to kill the first one very easily, or they can't at all. If they can kill the first one very easily, those tools have exposed themselves. The second one goes, I would like to not die. And that's the end of that. If they can't kill either, I get to be just like a whole horrible mean bully, right? Like plans were like part 2 forts on an objective. What now? I'll just sit here and shoot with -1. I don't care. But yeah, I think I'm guessing it probably happened at some point, but I don't remember losing both forts in the same game. I do think there's a couple of spooky bits, like they only have AP. So you're looking at like Necrons, Tau. Oh, I did lose both of them versus Tau eventually. But they ran out of resources doing it, so whatever. But they have super high APs. And so the defenses are basically 0. Like Tau, it's just a matter of, is it convenient and appropriate for me to kill that thing at this time? And then even Necrons, if they have the barge with the big gun and stuff like that, or the little floating guys with the gun.
The Locust Heavies.
Yeah, that
Or
stuff
the,
will do some work.
mhm.
I did have Locust Heavies like knock it down to 4, and then I killed them, and then rebuilt it over the course of the game as it just ran next to the Thunderkin, getting 3 wounds every turn.
Mm-hmm.
That's a disheartening moment. They worked so hard to get rid of it, and you're like, oh, it's back.
Yeah, those healing mechanics go a lot further in 10th than they did in 9th. Every wound is real precious on a vehicle these days, it feels like.
For sure, yeah. And also just like getting past the -1 for being low. Like it's almost impossible to do so much damage to me that 3 won't put me back up to a +1, so that it equates to a +1 to hit, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
The Sagittar are similar. Their T10 is a weirdly difficult thing for people to kill. Like there's a lot of infantry that you're just like, bonk,
yes.
wound me on 6s. I'll take 1 damage. Okay. I don't care.
Kids love shooting Sagittarius, dude. Yeah, no, I kind of felt the same way with the forts. It kind of felt like they exist in a state of like completely fine or instantly dead because someone shot them with like AP4 or AP5,
Yeah. And that's why I'm interested in trying the 3, because what happens is they kill the first one. Well, now if they kill the first one and I still have 2, what does that game look like?
Yeah. How did you because like a big complaint I hear about the forts, right, and also kind of like in practice, is moving them around the boards.
You have to plan.
GW boards.
You have to plan so hard.
Yeah. How do you feel these new GW layouts are to the forts? Obviously, probably not super hostile if you're playing 3.
Yeah. I do worry. That's one of the things I'm curious about playing the 3rd is, will I be able to find spaces? Like when I'm deploying them, I make sure they're angled properly so I don't have to rotate them. And I make sure that little wheel, if I go in a straight line, can peek just past the edge of a piece of terrain and open the center of the table. Like, if you don't do that during deployment, you're going to be sad because you're going to spend a turn moving up to the terrain and then waiting for next turn, right? You need to plan with the forts. You need to be thinking, okay, how am I going to, not necessarily like what am I going to do specifically, but how am I going to get access to the table if I need it or not? Because you may also just like hide. That's fine. But
do you feel like there were any layouts that were like particularly hostile?
The chaos space room I was talking about with the sort of the trench warfare, we're all lined up into each other, was hostile. But if I'd gone first, it probably wouldn't have been. I would have moved him up closer. They would have been the thing that he broke himself on, and it would have been fine. So, sort of. But if I'd gone first, it would have been fine. So.
Yeah, I think there's a few that are pretty hard to shoot cross court. Like layout 8, I think, was the one Tyler and I played like a practice game on. I think, you played against Enrique. I played against Tanner. Layout 6, I think, might be the one you're talking about, where it's like these like weird overlapping walls lined up. Is that 6 or 7?
I think it's 7. I think 7's the one I'm trying to talk about.
Yeah.
Regardless, the other part of that is it's not a shooting platform. It's a get up in the mix platform, in which case those walls open up for you. I think that's
Yeah.
really important. I think if you're hanging back, if you're cradling your land fort like it's the most important thing in your army and you're screening it, you got it backwards. It engages, and then your army reacts to your opponent engaging with it. This is how it's a winning piece. So
Yeah, I feel like it's the
that-
bikes that you want to keep safe. The
Yep.
bikes are the babies.
they're flimsy.
Keep protected.
That makes a lot of sense on a lot of these GW layouts where the middle is the danger zone, but if you can sit there for any amount of time, everything really opens
just
up. There is
shoot at everybody constantly.
Yeah.
It works out. And then the fallback shoot and charge, like particularly if you're high on CP, like it's an immense amount of destruction because it falls back, shoots its guns into the right kinds of targets. You measure out your 12 inches so you get your casino cannon into somebody, blow up a tank, kill a squad, and then charge into somebody else, drop a tank shock, and all of a sudden you're like, hey, I just triple killed with this guy. Oh, I got these guys out as well, and they're going to get reroll to wounds on one of those targets and then charge into something else. And it's like, there's this 500-point brick in the center of the table that just explodes out into killing 5 units all of a sudden. That's hard to find. So I enjoy them quite a bit.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point with the forts. Like the fact that they have transport capacity isn't just like an extra thing stapled on. Like you need to be utilizing that.
Yeah. Particularly in this method I'm talking about. Like I'm pushing it out so you'll charge into it.
Yep.
If only I had a close combat unit to countercharge with nearby. Oh, it's right here.
It's inside the fort.
Yeah.
That you just charged. Yeah. I when I was practicing like the double fort 5 Hearthguard inside of it, it felt like there was certainly some anti-synergy, right? Because like the Hearthguard want to get close, the fort beam wants to stay back. But it really just sounds like whatever. Sometimes you're, like turn 1, you're outside of 12, and then turn 2 onwards, you don't really care
honestly,
about the things explode anymore.
Even then, once you're in the center and you're accessing the table, you're still getting 12-inch beams.
Yeah.
You're just getting them in, like, really what the question comes down is to, so I prefer a short range beam or a long range beam on a lesser target. And honestly, it is, I'll go for the lesser target. Like I would, if I can get rid of a truck or a rhino or something that's like holding an objective or going to do an action next turn, great. That's points on the board. I'll take it. One of the things that's great about Votann for me specifically, I'm a simplify the problem player. I look at my opponent's army and I say, okay, you got 2 fast moving units. The first thing I want to do is kill those 2 fast moving units. You've got 1 close combat unit. Great. I'm going to kill that so that you have less types of activities. When you're doing that, an army like that where they can like just, and I'll just kill a bunch of trash so that the unit, so that I look at the table and you have less things for me to worry about, makes them match me really well. And I think that naturally fits with that particular playstyle.
Yeah, it's not like you're lacking in other things to deal with the close range targets that are in.
That's not a
fort's
safe place
face
to
anyway.
be.
Yeah.
It's not how will I be able to. It's what will I use when you get in
For
close.
sure. Yeah, I know that the Terminators seem like they are. We'll get to that in a second. The Terminators seem like they're falling a bit out of fashion in some of these other lists. We'll break into 1 or 2 of those in a second. How do you feel about that unit and its long-term prospects in the faction?
Just before submitting my list, I tried one where I took them out and replaced with berserkers and other things. Just try to because they're so expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're just like, it's got to be more efficient to do a different thing. It was miserable, and I hated playing without them. They pick up, they step out of the land fort, they pick up some trash, or they put real damage into something, and they charge, and they do killing, and then they get charged and they don't die almost every time that champion comes out of there. And the number of times that the single champion fell back and charged, sometimes even into the same target, just to get the initiative and do the mortals and stuff, it's ridiculous. So I think they're cornerstones. I also think the champs are super important to that unit. Just as a note, I don't think you just run 5 Terminators. It doesn't do the job.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think that the champ is the strongest part of that combo.
Yeah.
The
don't tell anybody
mortals.
how much it costs, because that's ridiculous.
The -1 to wound for the
How many of
unit.
those can I have?
Pretty criminal. How do you feel about putting the revive relic on one of them? Because that's something that I've always thought was really cool. Because it kind of like buys you a free fallback fallback charge with that guy, right? Because he just pops back up after your opponent punches him to death.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Any point where points are very difficult, having a small number of data slates and pretty chunky point sections. Unit like armies often will be like, I have 40 points left over. If that's the case, I think you definitely get that. I think that and the Grim Demeanor are high on my list of opinions that are worth having. But the argument I mostly have with Grim Demeanor is who gets it, right? Do I put it on each amp or do I put it on the Thunderkin? Because it's good either way.
Yeah, you don't want on again a transport, right? Because he can't do it in a transport.
In the transport, he's getting out.
He's talking about Grim Demeanor, right? Or are you talking about the
Not
point of
Appraising Glare.
effective thing?
Oh, Praise and Glare, my bad.
Yeah, Praise and Glare I tried on accident at this one GT and I will never play it again. I should have done that.
I
If
feel
it
like
had
that's
been
the
Grim
most
Demeanor,
polarizing enhancement because people either love it or hate it.
yeah, I'm on the hate it.
I've never really seen the value either.
I'd be remiss to bring up your love of the Terminators and not consult the sages on the age-old question of Vulcanite versus Plasma.
Well, when you're getting out of a transport, I think Plasma or the Vulcanite is definitely number one. But it's so close. Like I don't think anybody's particularly wrong one way or the other. I do like the volume of fire. For instance, in game 2 or so, I came into an opponent who had 4 Catons. I marked all 4 Catons. The Terminators on their own basically brought Nightbringer down to almost nothing. So he got cleaned up early, and I brought the next one down to 3. And if I'd really thought that through, I would have unloaded both units of Terminators, and I probably would have killed 2 or 3 Catons on the first turn. Having something that's just like, here, take 40 shots is really powerful and will solve a lot of problems in this game. So I think it's worth having. If I was doing a 10-man, with the lethal, the call, and the Grim Demeanor, and like all that, that's a whole different thing. But it's too expensive at this point. Plus, Deep Strike is too slow for the meta that I'm dealing with, at least.
Yeah.
It was something at Deep Strike, certainly something that costs that many points, and your opponent's just cackling and rubbing their hands, and you're like, crap.
Yeah, that unit has to be rapid ingress because it's a melee unit with guns.
Yeah.
So,
Even then, it's like, if you went second, is it going to be
Dang.
okay? Is it too slow?
I screened a little bit. Oh man, I hope you enjoy getting to melee on turn 4.
Look, I've entered the board where I could have deployed, and now I will start walking towards you.
But bro, I didn't know which flank you were going to be on. It's crazy, dude.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I'm a pretty big fan of that Volkite unit coming out of the Hecatons. Yeah. I first encountered it at a GT back in I think October, and it did the exact same thing you said, where I walked out, pointed at my marked Catan, and was like, "Hey, Nightbringer, boom, take 10." And I'm like, "What just happened, dude?" Yeah.
Also, just like
to like dev wound gun.
Somebody's got 10 Croots somewhere or something, and you're like, "I'm just gonna launch these grenade launchers at them. I don't even have to look back. Just fire and forget. Goodbye." This is again, I guess. So much of the army is this AP1 ignore cover damage 2 or AP2 damage 2. I like to get something that's different sized. To me, that Plasma is more some AP with some damage. It's a little bit more AP or whatever, but like it's not bringing a new kind of tool. Whereas the Vulcanite is definitely bringing a new kind of tool. When Green Tide was at its high, it was a must-have.
Yeah,
it's just the sheer volume of that. But
yeah. 15 versus 5 shots. Definitely gonna take the 15.
Plus 5d6 plus 20. Good times.
All right. I think we got a comment here from Donald.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a check in here from Mr. Plummer asking, why is Unexploded Ordnance the best mission, and why should we play it at every GT? Ordinarily, I'd throw this in the bin, but it's vaguely relevant here. You want to talk a little bit about the Shadow Round, Chuck?
Yeah, so Shadow Round was Unexploded Ordnance, and Donald and I got paired into each other. He got the first turn. And I had never played Unexploded Ordnance in particular, right? The little nuanced changes and things that I'd never really engaged with. I was very vocally
You weren't out here getting your reps in to be fully ready for the Shadow Round?
I guess not. I mean, like I said, I was planning on doing laundry and playing Age of Sigmar on Sunday. I didn't. This spoiled my plans. So he comes in, he pushes all those things at me. Right, like he should. But then I kill everything that pushed anything except for one stealth suit because I always leave one stealth suit alive. It's just tradition. Um,
Just to go
but
tell all the others.
yeah, I used the beef of my army, like 6 bikes, just drove up and surrounded the place where the objective was going, so that he wouldn't be able to kick it next turn. And immediately learned that Votann love exploded ordnance. We can sit, we can take it. And so I was just like, I'm going to sit on the objective. You're not going to touch it. And so I was able to reverse it. So I was kicking it into his deployment zone. Rest of that game is just Votann and Tau just kill each other. So we're just trading back and forth. But the fact that I could do that while getting that tempo back and pushing the exploded ordnance's direction made a huge difference. I won the game on a 7-inch charge at the very end. As they were locking the doors, that's what we were like. All right, that's game. We're out. Let's go. Just wander the streets of Tacoma and hope that I don't get killed on the way home.
Fantastic. You've mentioned a couple times here that you struggle more with points than you do with damage, and primary being a big part of that. If someone's able to just throw lots and lots of trash at you, have you secreted with Votann yet, or is that something that you're thinking about actively at any point?
I would say a good deal of number of games, I end up thinking, do I want a secret? And the answer usually is I'm going to exterminate my opponent's army and end on the objectives. And so I would be limiting the number of points that I could get. I do wonder if at some point I will get so few primary, and maybe the mission plays out low primary, that the secret mission where I just like, I'm going to hold the objectives at the end is going to actually be worth my time. Because then I could like get a 20 on the regular primary and then get the secret mission on top of it at the very end. But
Yeah.
it hasn't come up yet. I think the narrow path is so narrow, it's not really worth it.
That's fair.
I did spend quite a bit of time considering it in that CS Epic game I was talking about, and what I came down to was that I could actually get more. Basically, I knew I would have some units that were just rolling to see if they were battle shocked, but if they got the battle shock in my favor, they'd give me more points than if I secret missioned. So why limit myself? My warlord's never getting across there, so it's just that one.
Yeah, no,
there's no battle line in the list.
You're playing Unbroken Wall. Yeah,
it is not a secret mission.
I think you could also. I mean, if the plan is decimate the opponent,
it doesn't matter which one of the two. They're both the same mission to me. I'm gonna sit in these places and kill everything I can see.
Fair enough. Excellent. Oh man. All right. Sweet. So, that seems like a good breakdown on your run at Tacoma. Very excited, very happy. You ended up in 3rd, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Very nice. Ace.
Thank you. It's a very. I think that's the best placement from like a tournament that size for me ever. Like not even close. So.
It's good stuff. Congratulations, man. Sweet. Well, let's take a second now and break down some other Votann that we're looking forward toward WTC here. And I want to hear what you and Nick have to say about some of these slightly different archetypes. I think the first one that jumps to mind is Alex Harrison for England, though I think this is a bit vanilla. He's running the Iron Master on his own, 2 squads of 10 warriors, 4 Sagittars, 3 squads of 5 Zerks, also 2 land forts. He puts his bikes into 2 squads of 6 instead of any squads of 3, and he's got a full 2 squads of Jagers on top of that.
No, I've already expressed my opinion on Sagittars. 4 Sagittars is just 4 disappointments a turn. In this army, though, I don't disagree with him. What he's trying to do, I think, is solve the problem I'm talking about with points. He wants, like, particularly in the fact that he's in a team tournament, he's going to want to be able to dunk on somebody. My list would never be able to dunk on somebody at a tournament. You would put me into every bad matchup, and I would play it close, lose a little bit, win a bit, but I would never be able to like bring you a 20. This list could bring you a 20 because he brought these different pieces. I do think the Sagittars full of Berserks is a very threatening thing to do on a table. So some pretty the 2 squads of bikes do definitely feel like he's looking for 2 haymakers out of them, which is that's what they're great for. So I'm not at all surprised. I've considered popping my 3-mans into 12-mans, or into 6-mans, but it exacerbates my problems already of not being able to score. So
Yeah, those bikes are really a unit caught between two identities, being your only uppy downy unit and seemingly being really good at missions for that purpose, but then also being the hardest throw and punch that you have access to.
they're also really good to send out in front of your army. Like if they were
Yes.
battle line, there would be 6 units of them.
You would be 6 units, absolutely.
Like that's
Hopefully that does not become a detachment, because that sounds terrifying.
I'm here for it. So expensive.
Oh man! All right, who else has got Votann? Does Australia have a crazy Votann list? No, they don't.
There's got to be at least one 6 Sagittar in there.
Deutschland.
Germany. There we go. Germany does not have 6 Sagittars. They're doing something similar, but they've also slimmed down to just the 1 fort. They've got the Iron Master, 2 champs, solo. No one for them to join, as far as I can tell. Again with the 2x10 warriors, 4 Sagittars, 10, 5 Zerks, bringing those big, scary units that Nick was talking about earlier, and the 2 forts are still, and just 6 bikes. Sorry, slimmed down to 1 squad of bikes, not 1 fort.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about 25 Berserks, Chuck?
I mean, if it's not dead when you're done with 25 Berserks, you weren't going to kill it to begin with. Like, it's just... I actually like that list quite a bit. I would miss the Terminators, but I think you're bringing in a bunch of other stuff that probably makes it all right. I like the solo. I've played the solo E-champs. Like that's a rapid ingress threat you just do not want to know anything about. Like that guy is coming for you. He's also can be thrown in the wagon in the land fort with his worker friends.
Can take the last 2 slots.
Yeah. For a while I was running 3 Thunderkin and an E-champ in a wagon. So it would just drive up, they'd pop out and shoot with rerolls, and then he'd go charging into whatever. Lots of fun. Not quite as good as having the Terminator, so I flopped it, but like it's fun. It's good.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's similar to like Harrison's, right, where it's trying to go get points in specific matchups. I mean, obviously that's why they're bringing it right in the team's environment. I think in particular the 10-man Zerks are really good if you're trying to face down like Marines of any kind, because like any Marine brick that's like 10 guys with 2 judgment tokens, you pop the AP4, you're gonna wall up that thing. It might also be like a Dark Angels thing. I don't know the math on 10 guys into 5 Deathwing Knights, but probably bonks them down to the point where they're not doing much for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it kills most of the squad just by some quick head math.
Yeah, that's a good enough, right? It's
the
good.
Moles too, right? Interesting to note, you do not get 2 attempts at slowing. It's 1 attempt still for the 10-man squad.
Per squad, yeah.
Yep. It is still 2d6 blast shots at 511.
Can you shoot at 2 different squads and get 2 attempts, or is it just straight up?
No, it's 1 attempt per squad that fired. Yeah, it's after you finish firing, you pick 1 unit hit by a Mole launcher, and you roll for it. But like one thing that I didn't really think about too is like the reroll to wounds when you come out of a Hecaton, right? The Hecaton shoots its autocannon at something.
Picks up some random backfield 5-man. Yeah, get out of here.
Shoot like 12 shots that are rerolling wounds at it. That's a lot of, I don't know.
I will note that these units, they all had the Thunderkin guy, the mech, all alone. That's your backfield guy. Same thing as my Grimnir, right? They're just hanging out in the back, being like, I don't know, we're the cheapest thing in the army somehow. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Chuck, I feel utterly betrayed that you keep calling all of these units
mechs, wagons, boys.
We've heard mechs and wagons, yes. Like,
I am who I am.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Dwarves
Germany
are pretty
says
cool.
the appraising glare. England didn't fork over for any enhancements.
Yeah.
Because they
in general, I think that's correct.
20 Jaegers instead.
I like the enhancements in this army, but they don't do it. Yeah. Like if I could turn it into a unit instead, 100%.
I do like that England's has the 2 squads of bikes. I think having a second squad of 6-man is really strong because now you can kind of throw away that first one. Like if you see something really like you can like really aggressively go for.
I love a first turn move block and pick up something to get my CP early. Like if you can get that scenario to occur, that is such a strong tempo start.
Even better if it's like a real unit and the bikes with the sustain
6-man bikes.
Pick up a real unit.
That first turn quick CP might be a squad of Wolfen. or Thundercab or something, right? Like,
So I think Harrison's is going more for that like alpha punch that Votann are known for, and I think the German list.
well, I
is
think
going for a
particularly
lot
I
more,
haven't.
like,
I've got 0
solid
reps with
game.
Jaegers, but Jaegers open up so much more of the just scout hard on somebody and blow them up. I'm excited to see how that plans out.
Yeah, I'm curious what the use of the second squad is. Like, are they just meant to be cheaper than Hearthkin at that point? Like, they're just cheap bodies? Yeah. That
The second
can't
squad
split? He's running 2 squads of 10 Jaegers.
I mean, if you play into stuff
Oh.
with like no infiltrates, you could get really aggressive with 1 squad.
It's an easy trade piece. Like I have no trouble putting them on an objective and being like, great, when something comes out here, it will then get eliminated, right?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Do they have grenades?
They do.
Yeah, but
So they're pretty good at beating up trash. And they
Also,
move
like-
6, and they also reactive move as well, right? Like it's not a flat 6,
Mhm.
but you can be very annoying if you happen to high roll that reactive move, right?
Well, if they have no infiltrators, like 20 can trap an army in his DZ.
Totally. You don't even need
First
to
turn,
mention
just
that
run
at that
into him.
point. Yeah.
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 Yeah, it is
That'll be-
also 2 attacks a guy at 4-2-1 with +1 to hit and wound if you're punching the judge
Yeah.
target.
or possibly AP4. You know,
Yeah.
remember,
Also
if you
that,
want to get into that method,
you can use the AP strat on them.
get out of here, 5 intercessors.
That's going to catch someone off guard. Yeah, my scouts are totally safe. They'll be fine. Not anymore.
They're
Excellent.
my scouts now. Reminding them.
All right, sweet. And then the last WTC list that I feel like we have to mention, because it may be a little bit closer to your heart, as Olaf loves his Terminators, is Sweden's list. He is running a single Einir champion, as well as a call, as well as Uthar the Destined, who has not seen an appearance in any of these lists up until now, but who is one of the greatest data sheets of all time. We've got a single squad of 10 kin, a singular Sagittar, no more, no less, and then 10 Hearthguard with Vulcanite, 5 Hearthguard with Vulcanite, 5 Hearthguard with Plasma, and then he's got 6 3/3 bikes, 10 Jaegers, and 2 forts with beams.
How many kin melee weapons does that Hearthguard Warriors squad have?
The Hearthkin Warriors?
Yeah, Hearthguard Warriors.
I have no idea. That's not in my copy.
Okay. I hope it's 3. I dream of running the close combat warriors with Uthar as this like
Dude.
bad berserker squad.
I love that unit. I love that unit. I run it all the time.
Do you? I keep wanting to, and the points just don't quite work. But like,
Yeah.
if you have a Sagittar,
glad-
did you get the split off little 50-point, other
Mhm.
unit guy that's going to do this to get objectives and like it's a thing.
Uthar also slaps.
Yeah.
5 attacks at 6/3/2 with dev wounds and a guaranteed dev wound every turn.
He's on my painting desk right now, actually.
Yeah. He also like the judgment glare thing. I keep like that was a big part of
Oh,
Votann and 9th.
yeah.
You don't really get that now because you don't really see calls that much. But like there's awesome times where it's like Uthar will just be wandering around because he sets all damage to 1, and you're like, you know what? I would love to like
I would love it.
+1 to hit into that thing and +1 to
Yeah.
wound into that thing. And they're like, oh yeah, he does that. He was a lot stronger, I think, when like it was really important to epic challenge out these like 4 wound characters, like Technomancers and Wraithseers and stuff. That was something you could catch people off guard. You like scout the Sagittar up, walk out, epic challenge. You're like, boom, your Wraithseer's dead. GG.
Yeah. I think also in general the characters being able to just sort of be out in the opening and look down sight lanes in previous edition changed the way calls worked, right? Like you just have calls just standing around being like, I see a guy.
I have
Oh, he's
I
not
pulled
running
up
the melee
the melee
he's-
the unit here. I don't think it has what you're looking for.
That's so sad. Yeah, he bought all the stupid guns that everybody brings.
Yeah, the 2 really good
Oh,
guns.
are these
The
all
one
the
gun you
funny
have-
the kill team ones?
The rotary is kill team. The auto rifle's the assault gun that you used to bring to do actions with the unit.
It's a lot of shots. Like
Gotcha.
12 shots if
Yeah,
you're up close,
it
I
is.
think. Right? Like it's not bad. Right. I love the dream.
But yeah,
Warriors you're taking somebody out in close combat.
You should
absolutely.
play it, Jeff.
How-
It's really fun. Put a comms
How
on
do
them,
you
grenade, get
mhm.
it back on a 5-0.
Yeah.
I
Spicy.
have never remembered to roll my comms ever. Not once
It's
have I rolled
such a
that
good
5 up.
ability, man. Oh,
I
love that
get
on
the
Bird Brothers
HCP. I have no idea.
Boxcasters, man. Okay. Every time you're like, oh man, this stupid unit, I guess I'm gonna auto pass him because I need to hold some primary. Oh, incredible. Yeah, fair enough. How do you feel about 20 Terminators though? I feel like that's got to be the funniest part of this list.
So my old list was 20 Terminators, and I backed down from it because they are a little overpriced.
What?
Yeah. You end up with not enough other materials, and it's like the rest of his list is bent around that. It sounds. I would guess this person is pretty good at the 20 Terminators, and so the rest of this is definitely it's to highlight his skill that he's built up there. I just abandoned it and didn't build the skill, so forts it is.
He's got forts. It's the Zerks that he ended up having to cut to make this all happen.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, very cool. All right, sweet. I think that is all the lists that I wanted to take a look at. Yeah, that's all the Votann coming to Belgium. Sweet. I did not put up a thing for listener questions, but I got DM'd at least one listener question that we'll go over from Mr. Taus from New Zealand. Hey Sam, how you doing? Love to have you here. We're having a good time.
Check back with me later in the week, next week, Sam.
Absolutely. All right. I have no idea what that means. Taus asks, actually, I guess I should do the plugs here before we get into any questions. If you have questions, drop them in the chat right now. We'll be answering them in just a sec. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like this show, you may like some of the other ones on the network, such as Stat Check, the main show. What is that? Oh, it's Lucas Paints Orcs, which is not a show, but you can watch it anyway if you come into our house and sort of look in through the window. Oh my! Don't eat your models, Lucas. What are you doing? Anyway, if you see all these cool models and would like to procure some of your own, check out our sponsor, Red Dragon Games. They're located in Eastern Canada, southeastern Canada, I suppose, technically speaking. If you're anywhere in that general vicinity, they've got great prices on new and used miniatures. They also produce some incredible products that are separate from that, such as the Stat Check mats that have all the deployment zones pre-drawn on them with the Stat Check insignia on there as well. Love those. If you're interested in getting a couple more Whoosy Whatsy widgets, check out some of our sponsors over on Etsy, in particular was it J15 and Saltire Games. We've got discount codes for them in the description as well. If you are interested in getting some terrain to prep for this upcoming WTC, we got two different places to point you to that. One of them is a personal recommendation. Check out Frontline Gaming's WTC set. It sponsors Team USA. Every one of those that gets purchased, we get a bit of a kickback from, so we appreciate that. They're also, FLG just makes like the best physical product terrain in the game. It's nice and heavy. It's pre-printed with color on it, so it looks gorgeous right out of the box. You don't have to paint anything. Would recommend. But if you want something a little bit lighter weight and you really want the like perfect professional WTC experience, Weyland-Yutani, or if you just happen to be located in Europe and want to spend less than $1 million on shipping, Weyland-Yutani produces the official WTC terrain that we play with in Belgium, and they also sponsor the show. Check them out in the description. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, go ahead and drop us a comment. We'll all be there in that. But if you want to keep it going a little bit further than that, join the community. We are on Patreon, patreon.com/stat-check, link in the description to join the Discord. $5 a month gets you access to the most lively community in 40K in the 21st century. If that's not enough for you and you want some more individualized attention from any of us or some other wonderful members such as Innis or Typhus or Curie, check out stat-check.com/coaching. Also link below to get at some further resources available for a little bit of dollars. Sweet. I think those are all of the plugs. If I missed any of them, tell me in the comments. It's called engagement, and I love to hear about it. And with that, we'll get into our only listener question because we forgot to ask for them of the week, which is from Taus, who asks, what is the singular and plural conjugation of the Custodes jump pack unit? Thank you, Taus. Lucas, do you have an answer to this question?
I don't think I should go first.
I got nothing.
No
Jumpy
one's
boys
brave?
and jumpy
All
boy.
right, absolutely. Taos is getting mad at me because I call this unit in plural the Venetarii, but there's only one I at the end of it. So Venetari is plural, which if we're in Italian here means that the singular is a Venetoro, which is
that's what I was
not.
gonna say,
You were going to say, yeah.
I was going to say Panino, dude. Venetaro. dude.
Panino? Venetaro? Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yeah, the singular
dude.
panini.
Oh,
is a
now I want a
panino.
panini.
You want a
mean
panino?
Panino, dude.
No, I want multiple panini.
You want several panini?
Well, you
Fair
want
enough,
some
brother.
paninis.
Excellent. Well, you'll get a singular spaghetto instead, because that's what we actually have in the house. Fantastic. All right. Well, we appreciate y'all coming down on to watch this. And Chuck, thank you so much for coming on. Like we said, check out Charity Hammer coming up. We'll be talking more about it in the coming weeks. I will probably do at least one more show between now and WTC. I don't know when it's going to be, probably next week at some point, so look forward to that. And then definitely some coverage of the event itself. That's going to be a really good show to look forward to. Is there anything else you wanted to shout out here, Chuck, before we sign off for the week?
No, I'm good.
Fantastic. Nick, Lucas?
Thanks for coming on, Chuck. That was fun.
Yeah, thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
It's been
Wonderful.
a while. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to have you back, brother. Well, with that all being said and done, thank you so much for joining us. I've been Tyler.
I've been Nick.
It's the war boss, Lucas.
And he's Chuck. And we will catch y'all next time in our final pre-WTC episode. It's time. It's happening. It's going to be going on right here. Go check out that stat rep right now because it's awesome. Catch y'all later.